What's going on?
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood and my tongue keeps bleeding. From the words I spit, so sharp, so freezing. So cold, behold, frostbite they feeling. I could tear you apart or I could go heal them. Don't believe in fate, don't believe in ceilings. I just need a taste and my mind starts feeling. I don't pace myself, I grind on kneeling. Got lust for change, I just love the feeling. I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. Cause I'ma live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I don't lie at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll soon be winning. I live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I don't lie at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll soon be winning. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If you wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to our Sunday night live show here on Dead Air Full Spectrum. And we are kicking it off, man. I'm telling you, this is already the second show of 2026. It's going to be going fast. This year's going to go by too fast. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. Very, very special guest going to be joining us here in a few minutes, Christian Stepien. And boy, you're in for a treat. So sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and get ready to be entertained. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, if you will. Also, the thumbs up and the reminder bell. And again, for each and every show, I've said this to you guys already, that it really is important to do this. How do we turn that thing off, Ken? It never ends. There we go. Ken took care of it for us. How you doing, Ken?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Here we are, show number 2. Welcome to everybody tonight. We are going to get into the realm of UAPs, or for us older folks, UFOs. Hello, everybody out in chat. And it's nice to have you with us, as always. Yeah, I am definitely looking forward to this. And I want to tell everybody ahead of time, because I know that you'll have some questions for our guests. Please send those on. And at the appropriate time, we'll get to those tonight. But we are having a nice winter up here. Lots of rain.
Where you're at, you're getting all the rain?
We are.
Aren't you
Well,
supposed to be getting snow? I mean,
kind of
in New
live,
England.
near Newport, Rhode Island. So we get a lot of ocean breezes, things like that. So, rain.
I think we're getting colder weather here than you guys are. Let me check my weather here.
Well, so be it.
Oh my goodness. Uh that's crazy. I would like that. All right, Ken, let's get to it because we've got a lot to cover tonight, and I can't wait for our audience to be introduced to this gentleman. So, if you would, please.
It'll be my pleasure. All right, folks. Tonight we are joined by Christian Stepien, the Chief Technology Officer of the National UFO Reporting Center, or NUFORC, one of the longest running civilian organizations dedicated to collecting and preserving UFO and UAP sighting reports from the public. In his role, Christian oversees the systems that manage thousands of reports from all around the world. helping ensure that they're archived, accessible, and useful for researchers, journalists, and the public alike. So, tonight we're going to talk about how NUFORC evaluates reports, separates misidentifications from genuine unknowns, what trends they're seeing today, and where civilian reporting fits into the broader conversation around UAPs as well as disclosure. So, without further ado, let's bring our guests on tonight. Come on in, Christian.
Hello, Christian.
Hello, everyone. Hi,
Well,
guys.
you look in the background, you can tell Christian is West Coast. He still has light.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just setting here, so.
Sunny California. Hey, before we begin, Ken, or before I let you start in with this and I'll pop off of screen, I wanted to just send everyone out there the greatest of appreciations for sending me birthday well wishes all day on Facebook. I thank you so, so much. It warms my heart. So thank you guys. I appreciate that. Yes, I am working on my birthday, but I'm not going to work too hard. I'm going to leave that to Ken. So,
Hey, George,
I'm sorry?
today is your birthday?
Yes, sir. I'm
You shared
40.
a birthday with Peter Davenport, the director of the National UFO Reporting Center.
Really?
So it's his birthday today as well. Yeah.
I saw a couple of birthday wishes for different people out there today. It's a good day to be born, to say the
Mhm.
least. So,
Why not?
and it was only 30 years ago I was born,
Right.
2022. So,
Right.
anyway, I'll leave you guys to it, and I'll be back a little bit later on.
Okay. Thank you, George. And for your birthday today, I got you a nice present. We brought Christian Stepien in, and it's, again, a pleasure to have you here, Christian. So let's begin with this. For viewers who may not be familiar, what is NUFORC's core mission, and how would you describe its role in modern UAP conversations?
So NUFORC is primarily a reporting agency. And, we, like I think you said in the intro, we've been around since 1974. We actually just celebrated our 50th anniversary last year. And what we do is extremely straightforward. We take reports when people see UFOs, UAPs, strange things in the sky. We will take their sighting report, we'll document it, and we'll put it out there for the public. We've recently started doing investigations. We try and promote the subject. We try and help people understand what's going on. But there just the fact that there is a place that people can come to tell their stories. For so long, the government's been poo-pooing the subject. Back in the days of Blue Book, you could potentially report to the government. That kind of shut down back in the late 60s, and then NUFORC popped up to kind of fill the void. So that's what we do.
Yeah. Now, as the Chief Technology Officer, what are your primary responsibilities? And secondly, how's technology reshaped how NUFORC operates today as opposed to earlier decades? Well, the obvious, you probably had a lot of notepads you were writing things on.
Well, I came along when the internet was just starting, and I started about 30 years ago. And, we were one of the first sites on the web that dealt with ufology. So we actually had a site up in 1995, and we're putting reports out to the public before anybody else would, before MUFON did, before anybody. And, over the years, the technology has evolved to basically allow us to collect videos, to basically put up nicer interfaces, to do some analysis, to do things like mapping. So primarily the technology that I'm involved with is the technology of how the data is presented back out to people on the website.
Yeah.
And the technology for collecting the reports, that's improved over the years, from very rudimentary forms that we started out with to more sophisticated forms today that allow you to submit videos and photos and use maps to spotlight the location and things like that. But back when NUFORC started in '74, it was all over the telephone. So Bob Gribble, who ran the center back then, simply had a telephone line that was what he did was he basically created red stickers that were about the size of a business card and mailed them out to police stations, FAA offices, airports, and things like that. And the sticker said National UFO Reporting Center with a phone number. So when people got these in the mail, they would stick them next to their telephones. And when people would report UFOs to local agencies, they would then call Bob, who dutifully reported them and, wrote them down on paper and kept files and like that. So
Yeah, grassroots.
pretty much.
There are a lot of our subscribers, and we have these discussions on the show who've had experience with video. And I strongly urge them to file a report. But for those folks out there, what specifically, or when someone submits a UFO sighting report to NUFORC, what information are you specifically hoping that they include to make that report useful?
Well, the more information, the better. Obviously, we want the basic things like the time, the date, the location. Pictures, obviously, if they can get a photo or a video, that's tremendously helpful. We really like it when people can submit sketches of what they saw because for some reason it's virtually impossible to get a good photo of a UFO. We've gotten a few over the years that have come in, but nothing dramatic. So,
Well,
yeah.
everything happens so quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an underreported part of this whole thing with cell cameras now. Like, where's the video? Where's the photos? And I think people do the best they can, but not all experiences last 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Some of them are pretty instantaneous, so it's difficult.
Yeah, some are over in a few seconds. There's also a lot of cases where the cell phone fails. The aliens or the UFOs, whatever, can interfere with technology. And sometimes if they don't want you to get a good picture, you just won't get one.
Right. So can you walk us through quickly what happens to a report when you receive it, from the moment it's submitted to when it's published or archived? How does that process work?
So the reports come in. I actually review all of the reports now. So I will personally read each and every report that comes into NUFORC, and I'll grade them. And about 30%, I can pretty much look at what was said, or if there's a video or a photo, identify it as something potentially man-made. For instance, about 30% of our reports comes in, we can say right off the bat, that's a balloon, or that was Starlink, a Starlink satellite train, or that was a SpaceX rocket launch from Vandenberg or Cape Canaveral. So I'll mark them, and then if depending on how dramatic it is, the top reports, I think about 10% of them will mark as extremely, anomalous reports. And if you go to the website and go into our data bank, you can see those under the tier 1 reports. And those are the ones that we really feel are most descriptive of the truly anomalous nature of the phenomenon. These are the things where people are seeing, triangles the size of a football field hovering over their house silently, or, seeing an entity, or experiencing missing time, or having kind of a big ball of plasma approach them and do intelligent maneuvers and then take off or pass through a wall or something like that. So, and then, we basically have 4 tiers of reports that we, from good, better, best, and the absolute,
Right.
most impressive ones are out there. And we put them out there for people to see. So it's really pretty straightforward.
Are there certain red flags that might suggest the report may be a misidentification or something astronomical rather than an unknown aerial phenomenon? Because a lot of times in your database, I can read notations, and I don't know if it's you that's making whoever, but you'll say what they saw was a planet Venus or what they saw was a star. So I'm sure that when you get that information at what part of the sky that it was, that all of that goes into the evaluation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we, over the years, we've collected more and more data points, such as, what direction was it? What was the angle of elevation over the horizon? How big would you estimate it was? What was its estimated speed? What direction was it traveling if it was moving? So, in the case of it, something like, a lot of people report a very bright light in the sky that's not moving, and we can go and look at an application like Stellarium and basically reproduce what the sky looked like at exactly that moment, and identify, hey, that was Jupiter, or that was Venus, or there was nothing there at all, and maybe that was something truly anomalous.
Mm-hmm. So, to that point, what are the most common astronomical or man made objects that people most commonly misidentify as, I hate to say UFOs, because if you can't identify it by nature, it's a UFO by definition. But what are those things that most people
I can actually,
misinterpret as something anomalous?
yeah, I actually could pull up some stats on that.
Sure.
Can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Put up a graph of something because it can answer your question specifically. Entire screen. Let's share that, and let's just go slideshow, current slide. Yeah. So here, this basically, I think, answers your question exactly. The most common thing that's misidentified, we think, are drones. Rocket launches are next. Balloons. There's a lot of sightings that we can pretty much look at the video or the description and say that's a balloon. Aircraft. Tons of Chinese lanterns. Chinese lanterns can actually be really dramatic because they look like a big orange plasma orb that's floating by. And if you've never seen one before, you can certainly imagine that it might be something otherworldly. Starlink, meteors, planets, stars, satellites, birds. We get a lot of searchlights that people see and they misidentify those. So that's kind of the big breakdown of what we see.
I remember the first time that I saw Starlink. I think we're getting that feedback again, Christian.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, turn that. Okay. So I remember the first time that I saw a SpaceX launch.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was the end of the world. We were outdoors at military complex, and this thing was in the sky. And I had never seen it. No one's ever seen it. And we honestly thought it was the end of the world at that point, or something was going to crash. So we've become a little bit more aware of those things as the years have gone by. But I mean, for example, I live in the flight path of 4 major airports: LaGuardia, JFK, Logan, and Providence. So it's not unusual. I mean, you get used to seeing things like, landing lights and things like that. But when people see these things that don't make sense, it's almost like an ontological shock, because you see something in the sky and immediately whatever you're familiar with, that's an aircraft. And then suddenly it displays behaviors that you're not expecting and not used to. And I think that those are the things that are most interesting, because in this day and time, people know what aircraft look like. They know they make sounds.
Most people.
Most people.
Mm-hmm.
But, that is a big thing for me as far as the layman, the average person that doesn't have a telescope out there, and they're not well versed in, patterns and movement of planets and stars. It's easy. But how can an average observer differentiate between all of those things? I know it's a long answer. But when you see something, what is the first thing you should be looking for to eliminate rational explanations?
Well, I think just be out there looking at the sky. It's hard to say what a rational observer would say, and what an average person would know, because so many people have different experiences of how much time they've spent looking at the sky. Somebody who doesn't spend a lot of time looking at the sky may go out and see a dramatic contrail at sunset. We get a lot of reports like that people think are a UFO. It's just a matter of being familiar with what's out there. What are standard aircraft navigation lights look like, with red and green blinking lights on the wingtips and a bright white light in the center of the craft, things like that. So,
does NUFORC ever follow up directly with witnesses
yes,
for clarification and additional detail?
Yes, we do. So, and as a matter of fact, for most of our history, we did not. We did follow up with certain people and talk to them on the phone and things like that. But about a year and a half ago, we actually started our own investigation team. And we now have 4 investigators that will follow up on reports. And if you go to our website and go to the data bank, and you can actually see all of the reports that were investigated and read through. And again, the ones that are being investigated are certainly, we put our attention to the most dramatic ones. And, we've been talking a lot about kind of the misidentified things, but we should talk a little bit about the things that certainly were not misidentified. And if I can share my screen again, I'll put up some of the most dramatic images people have shown. So let's try this again here.
Sure.
This is fun. Share my screen. And I am going to just go to our website. And can you see that okay?
Yeah, we'll bring that up.
I just want to take you through, when I was talking about, how dramatic some of these sightings can be. Here are some examples of that. This is a sighting from Cambridge, Ontario, where somebody saw 89 glowing red spheres. And these are going to be in the order that they've come into the center. So these are more recently reported things, even though sometimes these were quite a long time ago that they actually occurred. So this was something somebody saw in 1976. Let's see if I can make this bigger for you. There we go. How's that, better or worse? That's about the same.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep it bigger. This is a picture that somebody saw in San Vicente, Brazil. Of a giant glowing sphere that was hovering over the city. Triangles. Again, I spoke about triangles. This was seen in 2024 in Knox City, Tennessee. And again, what's interesting about a lot of these triangle reports is that these things are gigantic, and they're basically either completely static in the sky or moving slowly past you, and then suddenly they'll zip off into the horizon in a split second. Here's another good one of what somebody showed, the size of some of these. Hovering over a house, extremely large, the size of a building, again, making zero sound. There's a lot of strange phenomena that people report about things that, let's go into this one and look a little closer here. So you can see just like giving off electrical discharges and things like that. Let's go back here. Strange shapes like that, boomerang shapes, tic tacs, aliens, triangles, your classic flying saucers. So these are the kinds of reports that when somebody sees something like this, it's obviously not something that's man-made. They're not mistaking a saucer hovering over a lake for an aircraft or a drone or a balloon. It's something truly anomalous, right? see if we can, there's an egg that somebody saw sitting in the snow.
Sort of like the Zamora report.
Yeah. Things like that. Big plasma voids. Ships. So anyway, that gives you an idea of some of the strange things that people see.
Okay, so
Let's
it brings us to a couple of questions. My first question would be, why the triangles? Have you, stopped to think, is like, what is it about the triangle? Is it like an aerodynamic thing, or what exactly is, because that seems to be by and large, I'm not sure when it started, maybe in the Belgian flat back in the late 80s, probably before that. What is it about the triangle? And my suspicions have always been this is something man-made, maybe dark money, black ops, things that we're developing here. But that's always puzzled me,
well, let me dissuade you from that assessment.
Okay, let's go.
Triangles have been seen back into the 80s. And again, we're talking about, you saw some of those pictures, triangles the size of buildings
Right.
that are hovering. I mean, there's no aerodynamics that's keeping these things aloft. They're completely silent. And then they can accelerate instantaneously to, Mach 5, Mach 10, Mach 20, and disappear over the horizon. So the characteristics of these things are well beyond any technology that we've had, certainly back in that time frame, and even today. We don't have things that can do that. So why are they triangles? I don't know. It's when we get into kind of trying to understand reasons for things and why ships are the shapes they are. There's people like Hal Puthoff and some of the physicists who, I don't know if people have seen Age of Disclosure, but that's a fantastic new documentary out of there where they talk about some of the ideas behind these things, about what the physics might be behind why these craft are shaped the way they are or how do they move the way they are. But it's really all surmising at this point. Nobody has any proof of these things. It's all theoretical. And the whole alien UFO paradigm gets so strange so quickly that you kind of get beyond physics and into the paranormal aspect of things pretty quickly. And
Yeah.
we don't know even how real some of these things are. Or are they projections into our consciousness? What are they?
Well, there's a little bit of talk now about these things, holographic images and stuff like that. Is it possible, theoretically, that the difference in all of these craft, you have the sport model, you got the disc, you got the cigar shape, you got the triangle, you got the V. Is this maybe a case of various, let's call them extraterrestrial if that's where we're going, but is this a case of different races, or like us, do every one of these vehicles perhaps have a different function? On Earth, a bus doesn't look like a dump truck, that doesn't look like a sedan, but each one of those things has a specific job or a specific purpose. Is it out of the realm of possibility that that's what we're seeing here as well, with the different shapes and designs of these craft?
It's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. I wish I could answer that question, but I just certainly don't know. It could be that it's different, different aliens, different entities, different NHI groups that are producing these things. I don't think anybody's come to the conclusion that there's just one kind of group out there that's visiting Earth. There could be multiple civilizations, entities, whatever they are,
Right.
that are visiting us, and they may each have their own technology or their own ways of doing things. I mean, some of these things are so different. Take the orbs, for instance. The orbs don't look like ships at all. They look like big glowing balls of plasma that are flying around making intelligent maneuvers. and approaching people. We had plenty of reports where people will see something that looks like a star in the sky, and then all of a sudden it'll swoop down and be right in front of them. And almost, you get into communication and telepathic messages going back and forth between these consciousnesses and people and all kinds of things.
There's some very credible witness, including pilots, people in the military that have seen these things. And one would think that they can identify a craft and they can identify something that's acting very much in an anomalous way. When we're talking about these things at incredible speeds, that with anybody human on board would just vaporize us and tear us apart with those kind of G forces. Is it conceivable that we're talking about either drones or being like unmanned craft, or the ability to sort of hyper jump from point A to point B instantaneously? Because we remember David Fravor, right, in 17, where this object he was seeing, the Tic Tac, suddenly goes back to their predetermined meeting point, the cap point, they called it, sort of in the blink of an eye. So something that fast, we look at it like physiologically we'd never survive something that fast.
No, we couldn't. It's these things seem to defy the laws of physics that we know.
Mm-hmm.
So they're either operating interdimensionally outside of our laws of physics, or there's been theories that they have some kind of control over gravity itself so that they can nullify the gravitational field that they're operating in, violate the laws of momentum and do these crazy things. Because you're right, no human being could survive in a craft that's doing the kinds of maneuvers that these things have been seen to do. Going back to the Tic Tac and David Fravor, we actually interviewed the radar operator from the Nimitz. We were the first ones to do that, who was the guy who basically was watching that Tic Tac do its crazy maneuvers for 4 days before they sent Fravor out to go intercept it. And they were basically out off the coast of San Diego. They had brand new radar that was state of the art at the time. This was 2004. And they were picking up these objects that were dropping from 80,000 feet down to 10,000 feet in a split second. And nothing, can do that we have. Literally almost instantaneously. It's 80,000 feet, then it was at 10,000 feet, then it was at 40,000 feet. And they thought, well, it must be some kind of a glitch in our new technology, our new radar systems. But every test that they ran showed everything was working properly, and they finally decided that's actually what's going on. And they vectored Fravor out there to go see it, and he was actually able to get close to it. So, about that case too is what happened afterwards. Is that two mysterious guys showed up on the ship, came on, landed on a helicopter, and absconded with the hard drives with all of the radar on them, and took all the evidence off. So,
there's something about Catalina Island out there, and a lot of
stories about
undersea bases. But if we're looking at that, is it a better idea or a better thing to speculate that they may be not traversing light years away, but they're actually here, closer than we think, if we're going with the alien explanation for this?
Sure. The theories abound on where they come from and who they are. And, you listen to some of the abduction stories and where the aliens will actually tell people where they're from. And they'll say, oh, we're from Zeta Reticuli, or we're from some other star system or something like that. But, can you believe them? I don't know. They certainly could be making that up. This is what's, both exciting and frustrating about this field, is that it's extremely hard to get to an understanding of what's going on.
Right.
I mean, for 70 years, these things have been sighted in our skies doing these crazy things. By tens or hundreds or thousands or maybe even millions of people have seen UFOs. As a matter of fact, I tell people all the time, just go ask your friends and family, have you ever seen a UFO? And you're bound to run into somebody who's seen something that they can't explain. So, but we still don't have a great or even a good understanding of where they're from. We have a lot of stories. We have the abduction research that's been done, which kind of points a light in certain directions. We have stories about secret government organizations and legacy programs that may have answers, but nothing concrete ever comes out about that. So it's all hypothesis and surmising. We just it's just one thing we do know though for sure is it's real. I mean, there's no question whatsoever in my mind, and I think in most ufologists who spend any amount of time in this subject, that they'll come to the conclusion that this isn't a mass hallucination. This isn't all misidentifications like we were talking about at the beginning of the show. No, this is a non-human intelligence, NHI, for sure, doing something that we can't do. And they do things that are so far beyond what mankind has the ability to do with our own technology or our own consciousness that we're somewhat at their mercy. Maybe not. Maybe they can't. Maybe they can only penetrate into our world so far. Maybe we have some defenses, consciousness, psychic, whatever it is. We don't. But I don't think we have any technological defenses to what they can do. That's
well, despite all the talk about aliens, I'm a pretty pragmatic person.
Yeah.
So an unidentified object is simply that. And it's not always a case of rushing to judgment on those. But in a practical sense, with the hearings that have taken place and people coming forward and whistleblowers and disclosure, and I mean, we can get into that. But these things, excuse me, these things present a national security risk because they are in flight paths of commercial airliners, of military operations. And a lot of pilots have reported back that they felt a great sense of danger with the behaviors of these things that just seem to be toying with them and are curious about what they are. But with these things in flight paths, the way they are and operating with impunity, to me, for right now, until we can decide exactly what they are, that seems to me to be the most important factor of this, that there is a present danger that presents itself with these objects behaving the way that they are.
Sure. I mean, Ryan Graves has been out at the forefront of that. And you've probably heard the story. I'm sure, I don't know how many of your listeners have heard the story, what happened over in the Atlantic, but, where our Top Gun pilots were out training in their Atlantic training ranges, and they were running into these clear spheres with dark black cubes
out
in the middle of nowhere in the Atlantic Ocean. And literally, they felt that they were at risk of a collision with these things. Back and reported it, and basically it went absolutely nowhere within the military. Meaning either somebody in the military already was aware of this or knew about it, or just didn't want to touch the subject with a 20-foot pole. For so long, if you reported a UFO and you were a pilot, you were at risk of being grounded.
You scrubbed.
So this culture and this this kind of prevalence of fear of reporting things was out there for a long, long time, and it wasn't really until recently that that's begun to change.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm going to go ahead and
Bureau is involved, and the subject is certainly getting a lot more legitimacy than it had in the past.
yeah, I definitely want to get into some of these meetings, and everybody wants to know when this is going to happen.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we're going to be able to tell them when, but at this point, I think I want to bring George in here for a little bit before we head to the top of the hour. And I will be back, Christian. Thank you so much.
Okay, Ken. Oh, I think you're on mute, George.
Yeah, I do that so you guys don't hear me the behind the scenes. My apologies. Thank
No.
you, Ken, again. Christian Stepien, our very special guest tonight. And I want to dig into some things here that I'm curious about with my just inert cynicism of human beings. So people report their sightings to you. I believe this is going up again more than half a year ago to a year ago, somewhere around 190,000 uh, pieces of evidence that were sent to you. You dismiss about 25% of them because just
Mhm.
obvious things that come out there. So the remaining parts of that, what's the
What's
process?
it's actually extremely straightforward. We grade them, on a good, better, best kind of a scale, and we put them out on our website for people to see.
So it's
So
not a scenario where you report to anyone
no,
governmentally,
no, no, no.
because that's
Everybody
where my
knows that.
cynicism
Our,
falls.
our reports are out there in the web, and we've really been the only organization that has been doing this for such a long time that has basically, made the information public. So that's kind of been, extremely important to me personally, and Peter as well, that we're not trying to keep this information to ourselves or put it behind a paywall. We're trying to get this information out to the public, and whether you're in the government, you're in the university, or wherever, you can get access to this, and you can do your own research and dig through it and read the reports for yourself and see what people are saying.
So there's no conclusions drawn so much by NUFORC in the sense of you look at the validity of the evidence that's being presented to you or sent to you, and then once you've come to a consensus that yeah, this is something that's interesting, let's put it on the page on the website, but nothing as far as let's look at the last 6 months and do we see a pattern here? Is that presented also on the website?
Um, Not so much on the website. The website does organize things by date. You can go in and see how many reports came in various states. We have a map out there so you can see geographic concentrations of sightings and things like that. But honestly, it's an extremely uniform phenomenon. The one of the biggest flaps that we've experienced was the drone flap back at the end of last year,
Right.
where and this actually made the national news and broke into CNN, which almost never talks about UFO things. News
Correct.
Nation has been on this subject for a while and has been doing a great job of covering it. But our reports tripled in the span of a week or two, from 300 reports a month. I think we were getting to, it went up to 1,000 when the drones were flying around. And some of that might have been just people being more aware of what's going on and looking up, but there were certainly a lot of sightings, and some extremely dramatic sightings. People were sending us videos and reporting things of big drones hovering over their houses, shining beams down on them. Drones the size of buses, the size of cars, flying around for 5-6 hours at a time. Um, the New Jersey Police Department tried to look at them with an infrared cameras and couldn't see them, indicating that they weren't giving off heat signature. These things were not broadcasting remote IDs, which are required by law. They were seen over um, sensitive government operation, like the what was it? One of the arsenals out there in New Jersey. some of our Air Force bases. They actually shut down Wright-Patterson for a day when they were seen there. So there was crazy stuff going on, and it was definitely a flap that started and then ended. And what's interesting is a similar flap had happened about 5 years prior back in um, eastern Colorado, western Nebraska, where people saw these same kind of drones flying around and reported it to the local police. It didn't get nearly the press coverage and nearly the widespread awareness of what was going on because it was in a more remote area, but it was kind of a similar phenomenon where all of a sudden there's all these things going on, and then all of a sudden it just kind of fades away.
Do we have any kind of
To
inkling
this,
of an idea that these drones, if they are not the standard drones that we're aware of, and you can go anywhere on the internet and see drones that are the size of buses and cars. They're very large ones to have there also. But what about of a different technology of a different country? And in the sense of, I'll give a hypothetical. There's Chinese agents that are in our country that have shipped these parts, maybe put it together here or was already put together, but somehow got it into the country and are able to utilize, and it's a completely different system than what we see with the drones that we use here. And they're the ones that are doing it as some sort of a spy technique. Does that ever cross your table or cross your mind?
well, the theory has certainly been bounced around, but I personally don't subscribe to that theory just because it seems extremely implausible to me because of the sheer amount of these things that were flying around. I mean, the mayors in New Jersey were all up in arms. They were walking out into their backyards and seeing them for themselves. They were everywhere. So it's hard to imagine, some stealth ship from China being off our coastline, launching literally hundreds or thousands of drones to fly over the New Jersey countryside for some bizarre reason. It's again, it's one of these things that just remains a mystery. It's Nothing makes sense about it. So
No,
it's hard.
I'm
It's hard
just
to come up with
approaching
a
it.
script that makes any sense.
No, I'm just approaching it from Occam's razor perspective and just trying to say, it's sensational uh, to believe that it's anything extraterrestrial in the commonplace mind of scientists, or, one of my favorite sayings is science as we know it. And
Hmm.
that's the biggest, I think, obstacle more than anything else is that we're not aware of how things happen as far as technology is concerned, far beyond our capabilities. But that leads me to why I asked the initial question with you, Christian, which was, what do you do with the information? Because as you're quite aware of, the government has been talking about this topically for quite some time, admitting to the existence of what they call UAPs. Our lives, it was UFOs. But I'm a firm believer, again, this is my cynicism, that anything that the government can weaponize, they will weaponize. And if there is a way that we could capture a ghost, because again, we talked about what we did primarily on this channel, is if we had the ability to capture a ghost, the government would want to know how they could do that to get secrets from other governments. Same principle comes into play with regards to the technology from crashed UFOs, captured UFOs, or volunteer UFOs that come into play, and how that would be confiscated and protected by the government. So anything that you would work with that was going to be detrimental to them, they would shut you down or just get rid of your website. I mean, are those things that you have in discussions with your group?
Um, yeah, to a certain extent, I think what you're saying about the government. The government. I don't know if you're probably familiar with what the government was doing with remote viewing back in the day.
Absolutely.
They're not afraid to venture into the paranormal, or they weren't in the past. I think a lot of that stuff has been kind of shut down now, but they were doing some pretty dramatic remote viewing experiments and having some pretty dramatic successes with that. So,
Yeah.
I remember one story where somebody was remote viewing the inside of Brezhnev's office, which nobody had ever seen. And then finally, we sent a diplomat over there who got to go in, and it was exactly as the remote viewer had described it. So,
Yeah. I mean, it's
I mean, this is where you get into all these crazy things. Like people have remote viewed alien bases on the moon, things like that. Now how much credence do you give something like that? I have no idea.
yeah. No, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, yeah, it really is.
I find myself a lot of the times though sitting there again feeling that in any of these circumstances where there's advancement opportunity that the government wants that first crack at it, see how they could turn it into a um, defensive or offensive force that they would use. Um,
Absolutely.
we're
Yeah.
talking about right now what was happening in Cuba with the sound weapons. I mean, there's a million possibilities that are out there, but you guys have to, I guess, in a sense, have that expectation that something may come across your screen, something that somebody sends to you that is potentially validating of what is just going on in the field as far as UFOs are concerned, that you might get that knock on the door. Well, did we lose you? Or did you put something up, Christian? Have we lost Christian for a second? Yep, we did. All right. It could be the aliens. We talked about that before the show began. Christian, you're off screen. We've lost you. Go ahead and log off and log back on again if you can still hear us,
Yeah.
because we lost video and audio from you.
Yep. The Men in
So,
Black are
yeah,
dealing
this
with
is
that
the Men
right
in
now.
Black. I was coming up on Men in Black. Look what happens, Ken.
Yeah, I know.
Which I can tell that funny anecdote because I see there's a few new faces that are also in chat too. Back in the blog talk radio days when I first started Dead Air, 17 years ago, um, that particular website gave you the opportunity to see who in the world was watching your show or listening to your show. And there were three that were always on top. Yep, just don't have
We
a
can hear you.
video.
Okay.
No,
That's
no
okay.
worries.
George.
Just bring it back up on screen here if you want to still try to work on the camera. I'm telling a very, very quick story for everyone.
Mhm.
But while I was doing the show and you looked at top three geographical locations that were listening to the show, one was Florida, which made sense because that's where I was based out of, still based out of. The second one was California, made sense because at the height of doing the show, that was at the same time at the height of the paranormal shows that were on TV. So it would make sense that people were listening for the chance to either have us do a show or just topically who was coming on as guests. The third was Virginia
Hmm.
at the Pentagon,
Oh,
that they'd be listening in.
Langley is watching you, George.
Yeah. So we sat there always trying to, scratching our heads, trying to figure out why they would be listening in, but it's what they do. They just constantly want to look at us and see whether or not there are any breakthroughs in what's going on. It's kind of terrifying that, Big Brother is right there keeping an eye on what's going on. So
Yeah.
anyway, any success with the camera there, what, Christian?
I'm going to be switching to a different camera. I think that'll fix it. So, give me a second here.
Well, what we can do, George, if you want, we can go to break a little bit early, give Christian
Hang
an
on a second, guys.
opportunity.
I should be there.
Yeah, that's perfect. No, we'll do that. We'll take our break at this point in time, Christian. That'll
Okay.
give you a chance. If you got to log off and log back in again, and then we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with you. We'll be able to see you on the bottom of the screen, Christian, when you come back.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, guys. So we're going to go ahead and take our break at this point in time. When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Christian. You're watching Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. We'll be back right after this.
We'll be right back after the commercial break.
I was built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on gas, never stop competing. If you break my glass, then this life's gonna end.
I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name. Check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change. Possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy, think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen. I won't let them fester me, I know most are festering. Negativity is a plague for the mentally weak. No mercy, all I got is working. Never stop searching, never quench the thirsty. I'm toxic and psychotic, with this logic you can't stop it. It's been chronic since I was a boy, so neurotic and chaotic. Built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on gas, never stop competing. If you break like glass, then this life's gonna eat 'em. Make mistakes real fast, then you learn how to beat 'em. If you take off the cast, you can see all the healing. If the pain's in the past, move on from the grave and put your foot on the gas. Don't never stop competing, yeah. I've been doing this, I'm on it. I just wanna be iconic. Sipping on a gin and tonic, got me going off when I'm on this.
I can tell we need to talk about things, so I'll let you start. Yes, I'm listening. Oh, I understand that. You need help with what you say? Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy, because the last time that we talked about this, I felt like I was really clear. I gave you everything that you needed to hear, but you're still asking me for more. No, I'm just trying to understand what you're asking for. Because the only thing that I can't really describe right now is how angry I am about you not listening to what I said before. You're just not listening. You're projecting and you're not listening. You're not listening. No, you're not listening. All right, what do you have to say? I'm listening. You make me feel like I'm losing my mind. I said it, and you're still not understanding. I've given you everything that you've been looking for. What else could I do? What else can I give you? What else can I say? What else do you need from me? I am. I'm going crazy. Yeah, I'm repetitive. I'm saying it over and over and over and over and over and over again. Why should I repeat myself? 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 Why should I repeat myself?
And now, back to our show.
Teej, you got to relax.
Right?
My goodness.
And now back to our guest who has returned with a fresh new look, Christian Stepien.
A fresh new camera.
Yeah, we blamed it on the aliens, by the way,
Yeah,
or the Men in
well,
Black.
they are the likely suspects here. That's for
Men
sure.
in Black have visited
Mhm.
Christian tonight.
Well,
We'll be
Christian, I
back.
appreciate you
Yeah,
indulging
no
me in
problem.
going down the rabbit hole with regards to the government conspiracy part of it, because I'm always looking for, and that's one of the biggest things, even in the aspect of spirit contact
Uh-huh.
advancement. We've kind of been stagnant for many, 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 many years, and I don't know how you feel about that because you've been doing this for a long time. Also, that is there progress in what it is that you're doing? What do you feel?
Is there progress in what we're personally doing at NUFORC or in the field of ufology in general?
Give me both answers on that because if they're separate and distinct, I'd like to hear.
Well, I think certainly in ufology there's some progress being made. I think again the general acceptance of the phenomenon has improved tremendously over the last 10 years or so. Um, People are there's more information being collected. There's more serious scientific uh, attention to the subject and things like that. But we're still, it's still an extremely mysterious phenomenon, and we're still not really coming up with the hardcore answers that we hoped we would get about what's actually going on.
Why is it that abductions are not as much of a thing anymore, do you believe?
That's a really good question, and I'm not sure if it's because the abductions have actually become less frequent or because the aliens have gotten better at abducting people so that they are not aware of it as much, or you know who knows. But you're right, the abduction phenomenon seems to have died down. There are also not as many, I think, really prominent abduction researchers out there these days. The David Jacobs, Bud Hopkins, John Mack have all gone by the wayside. There's still plenty of people doing things like that and working with hypnosis. And there's a lot of people, when we talk about hypnosis, we have to really be clear that a lot of abduction experiences are remembered completely without hypnosis. So there's a lot of, just plain straight memories of things that happen to people. Uh,
The,
but
the telltale sign of the abduction is normally the traumatic experience behind that. But if there are still abductions happening but aren't as barbaric anymore, it might be somewhat, as you said, it's more of an acceptance in society today about UAPs, UFOs. So maybe that abduction part of it, people find themselves more accepting should that circumstance befall them.
Mhm.
And in in today's day and age, the way our world is, some of them are probably saying it's a running joke we've seen a million times. You know, take me away from all this chaos.
Yeah.
So again, I wonder a lot of the times if there's something that is still critically missing with regards to the information as to these extraterrestrials, different species from everybody keeps talking about that. We have no evidence of it other than firsthand uh, encounters that people talk about, but no hardcore evidence. Nothing's been presented to us yet to be able to say this is A, B, C, D, E.
Right. And think about what the actual, the typical abduction story is, which is, somebody's laying in bed, all of a sudden they see, these 3 foot, 4 foot entities at the side of their bed, and then they levitate off their bed and then they pass literally through the walls of their house out into
Right.
a ship. So what does that mean? Obviously it's not a they're not literally, passing through the walls of their house. in the standard physical sense of things. Nobody can walk into a wall and pass right through it. But there are more metaphysical, paranormal type of things that can happen that might explain some of that. Maybe this is going on in another dimension. Maybe it's more of an astral type of phenomenon. Who knows? Then you get onto the ship, and you hear about the experiences that people have there with reproductive experiments going on, and alien half human babies, and hybrids, and training sessions, and people constantly being told that they're special, and they're being trained for something that's going to be really important in the future. But God forbid that you should remember any of this when you wake up in the morning. And another frightening thing about abductees is when they try and recover their memories, and when they try and go back and recall these things, there's almost like a hypnotically implanted trauma that comes up that blocks them from talking about that. And they will literally shut down and stop talking about it
I
because of
compare it. I
trauma.
compare it a lot of the times to people who are in traumatic accidents, and your brain cannot process it
Yeah,
and shuts down that memory. Something like that, your brain's not going to be able to process right away. There's no way.
right.
Interesting, very interesting.
Well, I
Um,
think there's certainly some intentional uh, hypnotic or some other kind of suggestion giving to abductees to not talk about what's happened to them. That I firmly believe that it's not just trauma of the experience that's stopping them, but the aliens have intentionally implanted something in their consciousness to block them.
That would make sense. I want to shift gears on
Hmm.
that particular topic and talk about ideology or the human belief factors behind that. I've said this on numerous occasions when we've had guests from your field on before, so our regulars would know right off the bat where I'm going with this. But
Hmm.
we have a problem, uh, an existential problem when it comes to making contact. And the reason I say that in terms of stepping forward, we always talk about the fact of disclosure. Well, disclosure works both ways. All right. It's not the government that needs to disclose. Well, if the extraterrestrials want to disclose, who's going to stop them?
Hmm.
They can land in Central Park, come
Yeah.
out and say, "Hey, we're here." Problem of it is, and I think that's where they comprehend and completely understand the human factor, is how stupid we are as a species. And they could come out and decide to do the talk show circuit, meaning the extraterrestrials. And one of the main things that's going to come out is, do you believe in God? That's a no win scenario, Christian. That's a
I
no
know.
win
I know.
scenario. Because if they are very science minded or totally science minded, and they say, well, there's no evidence of the existence of a supreme being. It doesn't happen in all of our travels throughout the galaxy. We've never come across that. Right away, it's a heretic. They're satanic. They're against God, and that kind of that kind of evidence is powerful and dangerous when you're talking about a world that is 95% religious.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, that's been discussed widely. That may be why the government is holding back from disclosure, because it would just shock too many people.
Yeah.
I think there's some good videos out there by I don't know if you've heard of Jim Semivan, but he used to work in the CIA, and he's basically, his point is that what is the government supposed to say? There are these things out there that can do it, basically anything they want to us whenever
Sure.
they want, that we can do absolutely nothing about. And thank God they're kind of sort of leaving us alone, but at the same time they're stealing people out of their bedrooms at night and performing these somewhat semi horrific procedures on them from time to time. And to be fair, some abductees report extremely positive experiences, and they seem, have aliens exude these feelings of love and happiness to them. And other people's have extremely traumatic experiences. It's all over the map.
Yeah,
So,
it's individual. Each event is individual. Then,
mhm.
yeah,
It's a
it,
spectrum. It's a wide spectrum of experiences, from extremely positive to extremely negative.
um, okay, Ken, if you'd like to come back in again here, sir. I think I have expired all of my questions with Christian. But if you want to join us at this time and continue
And we're
on,
back.
because again, you're much more versed about this than I am, sir.
Well, I'm going to try. That's a lot to live up to, but
All right. Thank you,
we're here
Christian.
for it. All right, Christian, I am back. Thanks for hanging with us.
Sure.
Okay. So the first thing I have to say is a remarkable amount of people in our chat are discussing their own experiences,
Ah,
their own sightings.
yeah, let me look
So I
up.
would like to encourage you to please, take some time, submit a report, get your thoughts together, whether it's a sketch, get your details together, submit them to NUFORC, because these are the type of things that matter, because sometimes there's correlations between these things. And I'm sure that Christian will check for a similar sighting in your
Mhm.
particular area, because they're looking for those common denominators, and you never know unless you report it. And it's also a great resource, newfork.org. They go state by state. Check your own state to see if people have made a similar report, shape of the object, the time, and stuff like
Mhm.
that, because these databases are invaluable. They really are.
Yeah,
So,
or you can go into our map and actually zoom in on your own neighborhood and see what's been reported right around your house.
right. So, a few things I want to get into. One, we're kind of touching on the committee hearings and things like that.
Hmm.
I've always been of the mind that if it wasn't for civilian programs like NUFORC, there would be less disclosure. So I think they're a valuable resource, and they serve a tremendous purpose in terms of giving people an outlet, somewhere to go without judgment, to, put their thoughts out there, give their reports. The bigger question is, I know that there's been some good with these hearings. I'd like to get your thoughts on it. I know we're impatient for the big ball to drop. Um, in some ways, to me, Christian, just my opinion, they've been a little underwhelming in terms of reaching any kind of a conclusion. We know the things are out there, we know they're concerned, but unless you're sitting in a skiff, what are some of the difficulties these witnesses have? Obviously, there are things that are classified. There's a whole thing going on, but we're impatient. It's not moving fast enough for us. So, can you give me, from 10,000 feet, your own thoughts on these hearings, the good, the bad, the ugly?
Yeah, well, I think the classification, the top secret nature of a lot of what some of these people seem to have heard or know is certainly a huge roadblock. And, you're right. What they're saying inside of skiffs is not what we're hearing out here in the public and on YouTube when we watch the hearings. Um, Again, I think a lot of these people are very frustrated that they can't say more, but they are sticking to their security oaths and honoring what they agreed to. Uh, you know, some of the big frustrations too are with some of the legislation that's been people have been trying to push through, like the UAP Disclosure Act, which has been basically almost passed for the last 2 or 3 years, but is kind of like failed in the last few moments,
Mm-hmm.
which would expand whistleblower protections and basically give people more of a right to tell what they know and outside of their without breaking their security oaths. So A lot of the talk and a lot of the discussion when you hear people like Lou Elizondo, Tim Galladay, Christopher Mellon talk, who are all very well credentialed government officials, is they speak about this legacy program that is supposedly out there, right? This top secret, deep, dark program somewhere deep within the Pentagon or you know, deep within the military contractors that knows a lot more than even they do. And they speak of people being threatened with death if they were to reveal what they know. So whether that exists or not is it's a difficult question. There are certainly some of these people are certainly convinced that this program exists. What it is, where it is, what exactly it's doing, we don't know. An interesting piece of information came out. There was I think David Grush was interviewed by on a podcast recently where he's basically said that James Clapper, who was the former DNI, was running one of these crash retrieval programs for a long time. He was in charge of that. So that's one of the first times I've actually heard a name put to this program. Now, again, I'm sure he would deny that, till his dying breath, but is something going on or is nothing going on? It's really hard to be out here, without a security clearance and make a good judgment on that. There may be something going on. There may not be much going on. I don't know. The crash retrievals themselves are hard to pin down on what exactly happened. You go back to Roswell and you start studying the Roswell case in any level of detail, and you're going to find that a lot of the witnesses are dubious. The people who said they saw bodies aren't necessarily credible, but without a doubt, something strange happened there. Was it an alien craft? Was it something else? It certainly doesn't sound like it was Project Mogul, as the Air Force has been trying to convince us of for years, but it's something else. But again, you always walk into this foggy wall of mystery the farther you get into any of this stuff.
Yeah, the unfortunate part about that, when we're talking about someone like Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon, these people were part of the intelligence community.
Yeah.
So, the cynic in you says, is this disinformation? Don't look at this, folks. Look at this. Don't look at, it's kind of like, and a lot of people who may not be aware of a guy named Richard Doty.
I've heard of, yeah, I know Richard.
I really want you maybe to watch a documentary called Mirage Men, and that may give you an idea of kind of how they operate in plain sight, give you what you want. But, our cynicism is always going to be there, and maybe it's supposed to be there. They've had 70 years of learning how to confuse people and disseminate information. So I feel like in a lot of ways, we're playing catch up, and I'm just not sure if we're ever going to get there.
Yeah, it's tough to say that Lou Elizondo is a disinformation agent. I mean, he would have to be putting on, he deserve an Academy Award for his performance if that's what he is.
Mm-hmm.
I think he genuinely believes what he's saying. And then you have to ask the question, so if it's some kind of an operation to make you think, to convince you that there are UFOs, to cover something else up, what would it be that they're covering up?
Mm-hmm.
Some weapons program or something that it seems kind of crazy to go to that length to cover up something more mundane.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily all the weaponization of technology that we're reverse engineering or retrieval programs that we're learning a little bit more about now. It's also just the technology, not necessarily weaponry, but just companies out there want to know how things work. Except for free energy, that's never going to happen. But you know, military industrial complex, and I am the furthest thing from a conspiracy guy, Christian. I
Yeah.
have to admit, but I've been so immersed in this since I was a kid, and it's just around the Scrabble board, and we
Yeah,
end up back
exactly.
here,
Yeah, round and round we go.
not pass go.
Hmm.
You know, um, let me ask you about this because one of the things that came out of that Department of Defense statement that they made a few years ago after 2017 and the Navy videos came out,
Hmm.
they talked about that from that point, they were going to start examining things like radar data. Their sensors would be better, their radar would be upgraded. And from that point on, they're going to pay more attention to these things. And the first thing I thought of is if you're going to do that, you're doing it at the expense of some of these older reports that why can't we go back and look at the Lonnie Zamora case and some of these things that happened in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s? Um, because it seemed to me like don't discount those things
Hmm.
because there wasn't, Photoshop and a
All
lot of
right.
these things
Yeah.
back then. These were, these were reports where it seemed like, you had your crackpots back then too, but these people for a lot of it had nothing to gain, especially pilots who took the chance to report this, knowing that they were probably going to get scrubbed or given a couple of weeks off, for observation on these things. So, that's the thing that bugs me. We can't discount what happened 30, 40, 50 years ago either.
Yeah, well, there's an interesting project going on in Albuquerque, New Mexico right now with Dave Marler. And Dave Marler is a ufologist. He wrote the book on triangular UFOs. It's actually,
Mhm.
that's the title, Triangular UFOs. But he is got a facility in Albuquerque where they are collecting all of the any old documents or reports that they can get their hands on from some of the you know, defunct organizations like NICAP and CUFOS and all these things. There's going to be a gigantic library. There's vast amounts of information. I mean, they have filing cabinets after filing cabinets after filing cabinets of reports and investigations and diagrams and things like that that they're all going to digitize and basically make available to researchers to go back and look at some of these things because there
Right.
were some extreme, like you said, Lonnie Zamora and those cases, extremely dramatic things happened back then.
Right. To some very credible people.
Extremely credible people.
Okay, so now we found out, and you'll have to refresh my memory on what the code name is, crash retrieval programs. That now some of those people who worked on one, and forgive me if I can't remember his name, but supposedly there was a video from his helicopter where they
I
were
thought, yeah, yeah, yeah.
lifting an object. And there's a wide range of opinions on those things. It doesn't look right. I'm not sure what I'm looking at, but
Me neither. I'm not sure what I'm looking at either.
you know,
And
I'm,
I forget his name too, but apparently that video was not from the craft that witness was. The witness that was interviewed by Ross Coulthart was not, that video was not from his helicopter. It was from somewhere else,
mhm.
supposedly.
Yeah,
Yeah. And again, those guys went out and started their own little program called Skywatcher. and they were getting funding from VC people to go out in the desert and try and psychically summon UFOs. And apparently they were having some success, and then mysteriously they shut down.
Hmm.
So,
How about we talk about someplace that's on everybody's mind now because it's a TV show, and I'm talking, of course, about Skinwalker Ranch, and
Walker Ranch.
we go
Yeah.
from Bob Bigelow, we talk about Harry Reid getting involved, and we talk about investigations.
Hmm.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing when suddenly these things become dramatized and they're on TV? And of course, once Hollywood gets a hold of something, all bets are off. Again,
You know,
I guess the yin is it brings it into the public consciousness, and the yang to that is, are we looking at something that even resembles realism anymore?
well, Skinwalker Ranch is an interesting. I'm a fan of Skinwalker Ranch, the show, and what those guys are doing out there. And I think they are actually really recording and trying to study some extremely anomalous stuff. Like messages showing up on people's cell phones and just weird stuff. I've heard. I was at a UFO conference where I was listening to a woman talk about a sighting of a triangle she had in Joshua Tree National Park, which is just near Palm Springs, outside of LA. And the craft came over. She took out her phone and pointed her phone up at the craft, and on her phone, a message came that said, "You're not allowed to video this."
Mhm.
Now, that is so far. I'm not saying it's a credible story, but if it's true, that kind of stuff is so far beyond what we think is capable. You go back to the stories of what the missileers experienced out in Minot Air Force Base when the UFOs came over their missile silos and basically shut the system down. By somehow they got into the technology, which was what 1960s technology at the time, and were able to actually control it. Without they didn't get into the wiring or anything like that. Somehow they had a ship hovering over the missile base and shut the whole thing down. And the Boeing engineers came in afterwards, analyzed everything, studied every wire, and couldn't find anything wrong. So whatever it is, when you get into their ability to interfere with our technology, it's mind-boggling what they can do.
No, it's
On the Skinwalker Ranch show, some of the really amazing stuff was just when everything breaks.
yeah,
They
it's
come out,
very
they hire somebody to come out with a super high tech, high powered telescope and try and point it at a certain place in their, vertical portal, whatever it is. And the thing just breaks down for no reason. It's never broken down before in its life. All the UAPX guys' equipment broke down as soon as they went out there. How, how's that possible? What does it mean?
Mhm. It's
Again,
unnerving the amount of sightings over not just nuclear bases, nuclear
oh yeah.
facilities. Um, so I don't know if it's a. I mean, everybody would like to think they're benevolent, they're worried about us, and but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope that's the case. But there are certain places. I guess Skinwalker is one. There
Mhm.
is another one. Maybe you're out there too. But there's also Sedona, and there are places like that that are known as hot spots. And the
Right.
thing to me that they have in common, common denominator is some kind of geological anomalies about those places, whether it's magnetic fields or what have you. They seem to have those kind of things in common, and I'm not asking you for an answer on that, other than do you find that compelling in any way?
Yeah, it's compelling. I'm not sure how clear cut the evidence on that is. That there's some geological anomaly going on with these places. There's almost some kind of paranormal localized paranormal effects
It
going on.
runs a
No question
wide
about that.
array of
Yeah,
those things. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I just, you're pulling on threads is what we're all
exactly.
doing here, trying to.
But I mean, in the end of the day, and this is kind of where I wind up on this is, reality is what it is, right?
Mhm.
The whole history of the human race has been discovering new levels of reality and new, we went from not understanding, that there were electromagnetic waves out there to now controlling electromagnetic waves any way we want to and building these incredible technologies. And now we're starting to understand more of quantum physics, and theories are coming out how quantum physics is related to consciousness. And, we're the idea that we even have you know, that we have a comprehensive understanding of what reality is at a scientific level is just it's not true. We're not there. There's a long way to go because these things do exist. These UFOs do exist. These paranormal phenomena do exist, but science can't even come close to explaining what that is.
Right. Well, it's a wonderful arrogance to that
Hmm.
sometimes that if we haven't classified it, then
Right.
it can exist, which really is not the definition of science at
Yeah.
all. Science is made to wonder, what if or is it possible? So we're a little myopic when it comes to that. A couple of more things I have for you. Bring George
Sure.
back in. One of the things that came out of these hearings from the DoD was new reporting protocols where pilots, especially military personnel, especially, were being commercial pilots as well, being encouraged to come forward now. We're going to be an open book. Is this a fool's errand here, or do you
Oh,
think there is actually some type of interest in because just because a pilot says something doesn't mean you or I are going to find out. I mean, I guess they'll put it in their database and act on it or not.
well, I wouldn't call it a fool's errand. I mean, Arrow is trying to collect data, and they are. I think the new director who I've met seems like a really straight shooter, and I think he's really trying to do his best to get to the bottom of what's going on. But he's got an extremely difficult task because he has to prove this scientifically, right?
Mhm,
That's kind of what he's tasked to do. Like, find us the actual physical proof that we can reproduce with our instrumentation or our, you know, whatever, our science, our theories. Whereas, we've been discussing some of the stuff is just, it's not physical. It's not something you can approach with science. Now, getting, the pilots to report is a fantastic step forward because the more data we collect, the more of a mass of information we have to analyze and make some conclusions about things.
mhm.
So, and eyewitness testimony is not, it's not something to just throw out. You don't just throw out the baby with the bathwater.
No,
You
people
you
can
can
be
convict,
sent to prison because of
yeah,
eyewitness
you can
testimony.
you can convict somebody of murder and put them to death based on eyewitness testimony.
Yes.
So the fact that literally hundreds of thousands of people are reporting 4 foot tall, big almond-eyed gray beings next to their beds at night
Mhm.
that come out of these disc-shaped craft that are landing in their backyard. It's real. There's really something
Something is.
going on.
These
What it
people
is, we don't know what it is, but it's real. It's part of reality, and reality is real, right? It is what it is.
Mhm.
We can't claim to understand it all. I think the whole human endeavor is to try and get a more comprehensive picture. And as I'd love to come back in 50 years and find out what we understand about this phenomenon. Hopefully, it'll be a lot more than we know now.
Right. Okay, here's true or false. Bob Lazar is the most credible whistleblower that ever existed.
Don't put me on the spot, huh?
Well,
Can I
I
pass?
I
Can I
I
say I
I
pass on that one?
I think he is. You're welcome to
Yeah.
tell me why, I'm wrong,
I'm not an expert on Bob Lazar. Um, I've heard pretty cogent arguments both ways on that, so I really don't know.
He's never changed his story, and some of
No,
the
he
things
didn't.
he
He didn't.
reported,
Yeah.
like the hand that is like a pass key type thing, and then we suddenly find out those things exist,
Hmm.
but they were around the 80s. So let's put it this way: he's an interesting guy,
Oh,
and
certainly.
we'll leave it at that. He's an
Yeah, I'm
interesting.
looking forward. There's supposedly a movie coming out where they've really recreated the craft and done some really make you actually feel like you could see these things and go inside them and
Right.
feel what it was really like.
Right. And the
Well,
last thing
if that is if he's telling the truth, then that means there is a legacy program. That means we're pouring vast amounts of money and resources into that. And
Mhm.
that it means we've kept this incredible secret locked up for when did Bob first come out? In the 80s, I think. And
Yeah, 86.
for 40 years, this has been locked down tight. And just knowing the human race, it's hard to believe that a secret can stay that secret for that long. I'm not saying it's impossible,
Right.
but a
But
secret of that magnitude.
I look at David Grush's
Yeah.
testimony and I draw those parallels to what Lazar was saying. Crash retrieval. We found these things, reverse engineering, and they can't give you a lot of specifics, but they're saying, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So I don't know. Bob
Yeah.
Lazar, interesting story. And my
It is
last
an
thing,
interesting
because we do have some questions, and I'll let
story.
George
Sure.
handle those from our viewers. Give me your three. I'll give you three most credible UFO reports
Oh, it's a tough one.
in our history. I'll give you three in no particular order.
Well, I mean, the Phoenix Lights was certainly an incredible one because basically the whole valley saw it. I know that we were just starting, Peter and I, back in '97 when that happened, and the phone started ringing off the hook. Still, we still take phone calls, by the way. We take reports over the phone. So
Yeah,
we have
I
a
know.
hotline and we operate the only UFO hotline where you can actually talk to a real person. Um, and even the governor came out eventually and said he saw the craft. So, certainly the amount of witnesses, the number of people who saw that, the craft was sighted over the Navajo reservation the night before, flying over
Right.
by the police force out there, the Navajo Rangers, and it's extremely well documented. And again, just as far as like a mass sighting, I think that's the most dramatic. The most witnesses who have observed an event that we've experienced
Mm,
since I've been involved in the center. I don't think there's been another case like that since.
yeah. You
So,
got another one?
um, honestly, it's the problem I have is I read so many reports.
I know.
They all kind of there's just so many. I mean, I've got one here from let me just look at my notes here. There was a pilot that reported a triangular craft. He actually got a photograph of it. This is from February of 24 when an airline pilot saw, he said it was a acre-sized triangular craft seen 4,000 feet below his craft, and he actually snapped a picture of it, which is extremely rare.
Yeah.
So, and then he basically said it. This is the kind of thing that happens. It didn't fly away. He said it kind of frazzled, like staticky discharge, and then it was just gone.
Yeah.
So where did it go?
Yeah.
We've got reports like that. We've got a report of a woman was watching a star up in the sky, and all of a sudden, this star came down to her backyard and turned into this giant yellow plasma ball the size of a Volkswagen. And then it basically hovered over her fence line and then approached her and then went right through the wall of her house into her house. So things
Mhm.
like that.
Okay, so we'll narrow it down. If you could investigate one, what would it be?
If
You
I
were
could, well, we
if
do investigate them. So, I mean, we do investigate the top
Oh
reports that
yeah, I
come
know
in.
you do, but
So, oh,
historically,
in history,
yeah, historically, if you
I'd love to be
had
able
a
to.
time machine,
I'd love to go back and see what happened at Roswell for sure,
yeah,
and put that story to bed once and for all with what happened out there.
all right, George, you want the questions or you want me to? Okay, so here we go. We have some
Okay.
questions here. Whenever you're ready, George. We're not going to get out of here tonight. Okay. Dan St. Marie, is there any effort to summarize the sightings each year and put together an annual report?
The answer is no. We don't do an annual report. We do postings about once a month where we try and talk about the latest trends and maybe highlight some of the more dramatic cases that are going on. So if you look at our website and you go to the post section, you can see the reports that we did. For instance, when the drone flap came out, we were writing a lot about that at the time. And then we've posted some more recent kind of reports about some of the more dramatic investigations that we've done recently and things like that.
Okay. So what else we got, George? All right. Cody and story. I remember Ken and I, myself and my friend Cody, saw some weird flying thing over Payne House one night.
Well,
I will send you that video.
okay.
It was not a Chinese lantern or anything we thought it
Mm,
was at first because we're all pretty rational. But I'll send you a video on that and a report from
great.
my headquarters this summer. I hope you'll be impressed by that. Okay,
Mm.
yeah, we'll send that in, Cody, for sure. All right. Here's a question: what was one of the most baffling cases that was reported? That's yeah. Well, it's just kind of I know.
There's a lot of baffling
I
cases that
know.
have been reported. Um, I'm still baffled by some of the huge triangles. I mean, they just blow my mind to
Yeah.
think that these things are out there. I've talked to people who've seen them, firsthand, and
Yeah.
what are they? Where are they coming from? Who's driving them? They certainly, people describe these things. They're not just triangles or three lights in a row. They look like structured, constructed technological objects. People describe looking up at the bottom of them and saying they could see, pipes and circuits and things like
Right.
that. So
Well,
it's
how
some
about
kind of technology that's, again, you have the spectrum of things from the technological all the way to the completely paranormal and everywhere in between. And are things from the paranormal trying to look technological? Are the technological things, using some kind of paranormal technologies? What's going on? We don't know.
Mhm. And that's why I asked about them earlier because then you have cases like in Illinois where police from 3 different towns literally saw this thing and passed it
Yeah,
off to each other. Should be there's a name
yeah,
flag
and then
there
they
for it.
saw it.
It's heading your way. Well, now it's just turned west and you
Right.
should be seeing it right about now. One of them snapped a really bad picture of it. But
I would for these are great questions. I would recommend what people should do if they want to really see our best cases. Just go to our website,
yeah,
go to the data bank, and click on the tier one cases, and you will just get you know sighting after sighting after sighting of extremely strange things and dramatic things. And there's a lot of interesting video and things. That's the tier one reports right there. So
well, extremely strange. You're a man after my own heart there.
yeah, and
I love
click
it.
that yellow open link, and you'll see all the details about the case. And
On
these are
our
the ones that boggle my mind. That
on
prove.
our group website, I
Mhm.
actually have linked to the Rhode Island database
Oh,
that
okay.
everybody can check because it's constantly updates itself.
Yeah.
I can't. They're not going to ask for your name, address, social security number, anything like that. But I strongly urge everybody contribute to this database, you might say, it's only one report. But if
All
you
right.
go in there, you will see that this is, is it searchable by date, Christian?
Yes, if you can go in and hone in on any particular date by going in by basically, there's a link right there that says reports by event date. So
Mm. Excellent. All right. We have anything else, George? That wrap it up?
No, I think that's it. We've covered a lot tonight, which I really appreciate the opportunity to have Christian share a lot of this stuff with us. Let me get us all back up on screen together. There we go.
Here we are.
But it's fascinating stuff. Again, there's so many questions that are still out there that every layman should at least inquire about, and this website is the perfect place to get started with.
yeah, it certainly gives you a picture of how common this is and how widespread it is.
Hmm.
The only problem more than anything else that I have is that if we have that connection with extraterrestrial somehow, some way, my only question I would have finally for you is what is the best thing that people should do? And I know that there are tiers, as you have on your website,
Mhm.
for photography. What should they be doing? How should they be doing it? And for direct contact, what would you suggest?
Okay, I'm not sure I followed the question. What can you rephrase that a little bit?
Yeah, questions in regards to people who have encounters or believe that they have encounters. Let's say first it's the optics part, they want to capture something.
Hmm.
How should they go about it, equipment wise or handling of those pictures, for a scale, things of that sort? Are there certain things that people could do um, to the aspect of, you know, absolute contact? And they're going to give it to you in written form. What information are you looking for from your witnesses?
Well, we're looking for as much detail as you can possibly provide us with. And, some people like to submit reports that are like a single sentence long. Those don't really help us out. We really want to know the full story. What were you, how did this start? Where did you first see the object? Did it approach you? Where was it moving? And we ask for a lot of specific attribute information, like I said, about, where it was. So I think the bottom line is if you're actually in the midst of seeing something, if you have your cell phone, by all means, grab your cell phone and try and get in there. But what a lot of people will take a picture of something with their cell phone and they'll zoom in on it really close. That's actually less helpful than giving us kind of some kind of sense of context, like
Absolutely.
catching the ground along with the object really helps because then we can kind of get some perspective on where it was with a relation to a building or a tree or something like that. A video that just shows a dot isn't super helpful.
Hmm.
But a video that shows a dot moving through trees and making sudden movements that we can see against a non-moving background is much more helpful. So things like that are things to keep aware of. We do love it if people can sketch what they saw, because again, it's extremely difficult to get a good picture of a UFO.
Hmm.
You would think in this day and age, with everybody having cell phones in their pockets, that we'd be flooded with these things, but we just aren't. And well, for whatever reason that is, I don't know. Usually they're not that close, but you look at some of these drawings and you figure, oh my God, if somebody had a camera, that would have made an extremely dramatic photograph. But
Hmm.
it apparently is very difficult to get.
There are many of you in the chat tonight that were sharing your experiences. Again, feel free. The website
Yeah.
is running right across the bottom there, newfork.org. And flood the website, give them the
Yeah.
information that they need because they're always looking for that next story. The funny part I was telling you about that cloud formation thing. Here's
Mhm.
the weird part, and maybe the closing question to go along with it. I can't find it anywhere, including the emails that I sent to Katie Page with the evidence. Those video clips are gone.
Well, there you
Did
go.
that happen?
Why do you think that happened? That's
Geez,
those aliens
aliens or Men in
messing
Black?
with
One
your
or the other.
technology.
Hang on. It's Virginia on the line again, George.
Pentagon, damn it.
The Pentagon.
Christian, thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining us
thanks, guys.
tonight.
It's
We'd
been a lot of fun.
love to follow up with you on a future show also. And,
Sure, I'd be happy to.
you know, things are always changing within this field. So we'd love to get some information from you as things break along the way.
Okay, well, just keep an eye on the site. The site has always got the latest reports out there, and you can always see what's going on. So,
Incredible.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And thank you all in the audience for joining us this evening for our Patreon members. Town Hall tomorrow night, as usual, 8 p.m. We'll see you there. Until then, guys, have a great rest of your week. Thank you for all the birthday wishes again, and we'll see you soon. On behalf of Ken DaCosta, my name's George Lopez. You've been watching the live episode on Dead Air Full Spectrum. Have a great night. See you soon.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella bad. After her there ain't no coming back. Wanna take a run at that. I think she's feeling me, turn it up a few degrees. My imagination of her body gets the best of me. Oh gosh, she's such a tease, bitten lips, bruised.